This week on Quality Digest Live, we'll examine the importance of shining the spotlight on our own successes.
Plus, are accreditation bodies playing Monopoly in Europe? We'll find out when we come back. Well, welcome back to Quality Digest Live for December 21st, 2012. Hey, we're still here.
That's right. So far, there's still time.
If we blink out in the middle of the show,
you'll know what happened.
You'll know what happened.
Those Mayans.
Those Mayans, darn. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. Thanks for that, Dirk. I totally forgot about
there we go.
The holiday.
We're supposed to be.
That's right.
It's really a boring apocalypse. That's all I can say.
No, very, very bad. All right. In the news this week, the non-apocalyptic news this week, Jim Clifton, the CEO of Gallup, the public opinion research firm, revealed how political leaders can benefit by treating citizens as customers. The thrust of Clifton's argument, backed up, of course, by Gallup research, is that people today, especially the wealthy, are more mobile than ever before. They can choose the state or nation in which they wish to live, work, and start businesses. Communications technology is pushing the trend. Today, an information-based company, for instance, can be located anywhere in the world and easily do business with partners and customers anywhere too. So that freedom means that those who live in a nation like the United States or the United Kingdom are really more akin to customers than they are to citizens. And governments, competent governments who want to win in today's increasingly interconnected world economy understand that. And they treat their customer citizens accordingly. They lavish tax breaks, economic breaks, benefits on those that they most want to woo. It's only natural that individuals and the companies that those individuals are owned by will therefore migrate to the areas that best serve their needs. Loyalty to specific products has long been on the decline, as we know, and now even loyalty to one's home country, perhaps, is maybe becoming passé. It's an interesting trend. It's one that we're going to keep our eyes on in 2013, and I think that's really the nub of it here, is that we've seen product loyalty go away, and now, where you were born, do you have any allegiance to that? I mean, if you are wealthy, and this is really talking about wealthy folks that own companies, that own organizations and run organizations, you're going to go and you're going to live and you're going to operate where it makes the most sense for you to do that.
It kind of ties into what Levinson was talking about last week, right? Where cities anymore are no longer the centers of commerce. I mean, because of the internet, there is no necessarily any real center of commerce. Commerce is wherever you want it to be. Wherever you want to be.
The guy who first brought this to a lot of our attention, my attention certainly, was Thomas Friedman, the writer Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, the old New York Times writer, who wrote books like The World is Flat, for instance, that many of us have read. Really kind of brought this to the idea that that's a flattening world, that you can work and operate anywhere, so you're going to go. Again, governments are going to operate like organizations and want to woo their customers. You're going to go where you're going to get those breaks, and it's going to be best for you to operate your business. So we're going to see that happen more and more, I think, next year and the years to come.
That's right. And if you want more on that little news items, you can find it at the bottom of our player page, along with links to all the other stories as well.
Yeah, everything we covered today, as always, all the links are right below the player page right there, and check those out after the show's over.
After the show, go. Stay with us right now.
That's right.
Okay, also in the news, IBM recently unveiled its 7th annual IBM 5 in 5. That's a list of innovations that have the potential to change the way people work, live, and interact during the next 5 years. And this year, all of these 5 in 5 related to our 5 senses. So let's run through them real quick. So for instance, touch. IBM scientists are developing applications that use haptic, infrared, and pressure-sensitive technologies to simulate touch, such as the texture and weave of a fabric. So the idea here is that perhaps in the future, you might be able to actually feel what something feels like, a fabric, through your laptop or your device, through your smartphone. You'll actually be able to feel the texture of something. Or how about sight? We take about 500 billion digital photos a year.
500 billion.
72 hours of videos uploaded to YouTube every minute. In the future, brain-like capabilities will let computers analyze features such as color, texture patterns, or edge information and extract insights from visual media. And what they're saying here is right now when you see a video or you find a video or a picture on Google or something, you're only finding it because somebody has manually gone in and tagged. They've written some text. This is a picture of a whatever. What they're saying is that in the future, the computer will be able to deduce what that image is actually all about.
Kind of meta-tag it on their own.
It'll meta-tag it on its own.
Cool.
In the next 5 years, by learning about emotion and being able to sense mood, systems will hear by pinpointing aspects of a conversation, and actually some of this is already going on, analyzing pitch, tone, and hesitancy to help us have more productive dialogues with customers or allow us to seamlessly interact with different cultures.
That's happening in call centers right now.
It is. Being able
does that.
to detect stress.
Yep.
It's also being used, perhaps, well, we know it's being used in some cases to give you a hint as to whether a person is telling the truth or not. Or how about a computing system that can actually taste? IBM is working on technologies that in the future will break down ingredients to their molecular level and blend the chemistry of food compounds with psychology behind what flavors and smells humans prefer. And finally, smell. By analyzing odors, biomarkers, and thousands of molecules in someone's breath, doctors will have help diagnosing and monitoring the onset of a variety of serious ailments.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, we're just one step closer to me not having to show up to work, right?
We all would love that.
So I'm just going to sleep. I'm going to send the robo-me there with its 5 senses, and I can do everything that I do right now.
And more, I'm
Which
sure.
is basically just sit here and take in my surroundings.
Look pretty.
Look pretty.
Well, IBM has some great stuff. We actually are working with IBM, the IBM Rational division right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And some great content from IBM that you can find on Quality Digest, so look out for that too. Great story, Dirk. Thank you for that one.
And accreditation in Europe, big topic. A couple big stories
Accreditation in Europe, you know, one of the things I always did when I was a kid, Dirk, is I loved to play Monopoly. Did you ever play Monopoly?
I love Monopoly.
Monopoly,
Yep.
great game, Monopoly, right? Everybody loves Monopoly.
Yeah.
Well, everybody loves Monopoly unless, perhaps, you are seeking to be accredited in Europe and you don't have a lot of choice in the matter. The article called Accreditation in Europe, Monopoly in the Making, by George Anastasopoulos. Anastasopoulos. Thank you, Dirk, for that. My Greek is a little weak. But,
I think I got that right.
Weak Greek. But yeah, George wrote this article, and he's talking about an issue that really is a very important issue here. And I think it's one that we need to understand. We need to take a little time here to unwind this because it's a little complicated. Individual nations in the EU, and again, this really began with EU Regulation 765/2008. So it's a few years old now. Each individual nation in the EU now is being winnowed down to one accreditation body, one AB.
Lab accreditation body.
Accreditation body that will accredit those certification bodies for labs in Europe. So George looks at this and he says, well, gosh, this is a monopoly. This is not good for the customer.
And by the way, he's not the only one who thinks this. He's writing about it, but this is actually a big concern pretty much worldwide, and particularly with members of the IAF, International Accreditation Forum. So.
It is. The International Accreditation Forum is concerned about this because they're wondering how it fits in with their multilateral recognition arrangements, the MLAs, because, I mean, the MLA is really designed to kind of level the playing field and make sure that there's standards, but it could be perceived that this fits in with the MLA, but really it kind of subverts it. I mean, ultimately what's going on here is it's reducing choice for customers. And those labs that need to be certified to these various standards and specifications aren't going to have a choice as to, or don't have a choice as to what accreditation body they choose. And hey,
let me just bring this home a little bit. For those of you in the United States, if you're a lab, you're already familiar with this, and you're probably familiar with some of this. But let me run through it. Number one, to make sure that we're actually right, because we may be wrong. This is actually a very confusing issue. But let's say in the United States, you've got several labs, you've got several organizations that accredit labs. You've got NAVLab, A2LA, IAS,
A-Class, I think.
A-Class.
Yeah, so there's several of them.
There's half a dozen.
This monopoly issue is not an issue in the United States, but it is in Europe. So.
Right, and in the United States, it would be as if the U.S., it would be as if the government or somebody was to say, okay, we're only going to allow A2LA to accredit labs. And if you're a lab and you need to be accredited to a standard, a lab standard, you only can go to A2LA. Otherwise, we're not going to recognize it if it comes from IAS or A-Class or NAVLab or any of those guys, right? So that is the idea of what's going on in Europe. And I think what George is saying is like, well, wait a minute, that makes him the only dog in the show.
Only game in town. And what
Right.
does that do? Naturally, that's going to, you think, it's going to raise the prices, because if they don't have any competition,
Right.
it's going to become a very expensive matter for people to have to get accredited.
And the European Commission's argument is that they believe this actually will improve the quality of things, and they have some rather strange reasoning for doing this, I think, and George kind of goes after it in his article.
He does, and I read the article. I mean, we're talking about it. Really, the intention of talking about it in the show is to get to read the article, because it's an in-depth piece and it really deals with it. But what George is talking about here is the idea is that competition leads to commercialization. Right? I mean, and that's what the fear is, I think, for the EU, is that if this is commercialized, maybe it's such an important piece of the puzzle. If it's commercialized, it's going to be not held to the same standards. But
that's their argument.
That's the argument. But again, what does it do? It just leaves those certification bodies with no choice in that. And it really just raises costs. I mean, George talks about, he raises the point of Stalin a lot. He talks about the socialism of this thing, and it's like, well, this runs counter to the free market and what this should be. And ultimately, who suffers? Who suffers ultimately are the end users. And I mean, it just goes right down the chain. If there's no choice, and the labs have to go to one particular AB to get certified, that's more expensive for them. Ultimately, they probably are going to have to raise the prices for their end users, the people that they're certifying, that they're analyzing stuff for, right? So I mean, this is an issue that affects all of us, I think, and all of you out there too. I mean, especially if you're doing business in Europe, right? I mean, I think that it's an issue that is amongst that needs to be kind of front of mind for all.
Right, and if you want, this is a very good article. We're not experts on this. Hopefully, we give you the flavor. If you are a lab and lab accreditation is important to you, especially if you're doing work in Europe, take a read through this article by George Anastasopoulos. Also, there's going to be another kind of related article next month by Grant Ramaley, which is also related. It's also very interesting. There's some stuff that's going on in Europe.
Well, that's so interesting in Europe too, because that really what's going on there is that there's been some, I don't want to use the word shenanigans, but there's been some interesting commentary of the CBs talking about whether you need to get recertified or not, and whether that's necessary.
Yeah, there's either some misunderstandings or shenanigans, depending on how you want it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. That's again. The story is by George Anastasopoulos, and that was in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. So check that out. That's again right below the player page, right there. Okay. Well, Dirk is sneaking out of the frame because he is going to scoot over to the place where we do our tech corners, our tech corner set, and we have a really good one this time from Intamco.
They're all good.
They're all good. They're all good. And Intamco is brought us Tech Corner this week. It is, Dirk, it's a Bluetooth transmitter, I believe.
Yes, it is. This is, well, it looks like a cell phone. It's the size of a cell phone, but it isn't a cell phone. This is a cell phone. This is my Samsung Charge. And this is the Iblue. This is an industrial Bluetooth transmitter from Itamco. That is the Indiana Technology and Manufacturing Companies, based in, well, strangely enough, Indiana.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. This was actually initially developed by Itamco because they needed, on their own shop floor, on their own machining centers, they needed a way for their employees to easily be able to capture measurement data and transmit it to their portable devices, or whether it's initially it was designed for iPhone, iPad, and there were some apps that went with that, and there still are. But because it was Bluetooth, it actually made this data available to any Bluetooth device, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, an Android phone, or a tablet, or as I'm going to use it today because it's easier to show you, a laptop. So as long as it's Bluetooth capable, it can accept measurement data using this Bluetooth transmitter. So let's take a little quick look at it. If we go to the gauge cam here, you can see, if I center this in the camera, basically on the business end of it, this is the Iblue, we've got three connectors. We've got a K-type thermocouple connector. We've got, of all things, a Lieb hardness tester connector. That was because, remember, this was initially designed for their own folks, and they were using Lieb hardness testers out on the shop floor, so they left it with a device when they made it commercial. And also a USB connector, and this is really what I want to talk about today. So the importance about, let's say, a USB connector is that if you have more and more devices, more and more measurement devices do have USB outputs, or if they don't, the companies that make those devices, let's say Mitutoyo or Starrett and so forth, are creating adapter cables that will adapt their proprietary outputs to a USB so that you can more easily connect their equipment, their measurement equipment, calipers, dial gauges, etc., into a laptop or computer. So let's take a look at one. For instance, Mitutoyo, if we come back to the gauge cam here, Mitutoyo sent us a quantum mic. This is an IP65 rated coolant-proof micrometer from Mitutoyo. This has a Digimatic output, but Mitutoyo sent along with us a USB adapter cable. So this will take the Digimatic output of the Mitutoyo micrometer and send it to a USB connector so I can plug this into any laptop or any USB capable device. I also happen to have here a Mitutoyo caliper. And this also has a Digimatic output. I could also connect an adapter cable, Digimatic to USB, and bring it into my laptop. Starrett does the same thing. Other companies do the same thing. But what we're going to do today is, rather than take this USB and bring it into our laptop, we're going to bring it right into the Iblue. So I'm going to plug this into the Iblue, and I'm also going to plug in a thermocouple, and I'll show you why. I think actually having a thermocouple on the Iblue, a thermocouple input, is actually brilliant because it really lets you do something that I think is important. So let's go to our screen share here. What we have here on my laptop is a Google Doc. If you're not familiar with Google Doc, Google Docs are applications as a service provided by Google on the cloud. They have a Word-like document format, and they also have an Excel spreadsheet type format. Because they're on the cloud, anybody can share them. That's how you get your collaboration. That's actually how we work around here. So I've created a little spreadsheet, and I've created some columns: date, temperature, length, and height. So let's say I have a repetitive process. I'm going out to the shop floor every day, let's say, and measuring something in order to monitor my process. So I might go in and enter the date. Now I want to take a temperature. Well, if we come back to the gauge cam here, I have a little temperature button on the Iblue, which captures the data from the thermocouple. So I press that. Now if we come back to our screen share, we'll see that this data has been sent to our temperature column in the in my spreadsheet here. So now I've captured my temperature, and now I'm going to take some measurements, and we can just stay on the screen here. I'm just going to press the measurement button on my micrometer, and we see it captures a measurement, and maybe I'll take another one. And remember, this data is being transmitted wirelessly via Bluetooth, and maybe I take another measurement and another measurement. And let's say I come over to the height column, and I take some more measurements on something else, and we'll do all that, right? And this is, again, all wireless. So what do I have now? Well, at the end of the day, what I've got is a date, a temperature, and my measurements. What does that mean? That means that I could come back, let's say, a week later or the next day, put in another date, another temperature, take some more length and height measurements, and now what I have is data. I can analyze my data not only over time and see variation over time, I can see variation over temperature range. And to me it makes perfect sense to do that because a thermocouple is cheap, it's already built into the Iblue, so why not take temperature readings at the same time? To me, it's just another point of data that's going to allow you to analyze your data a little bit more fully in the future. Now, I mentioned that Itamco developed this for themselves. So their main goal was, number one, that it would communicate with any mobile device, and number two, that it would be relatively inexpensive. And it is. This is $499. And remember, all you need is this box, it's the transmitter, you already have the receiver. If you have a Bluetooth device, you've already got your data receiver. You don't need to buy anything else other than whatever equipment you're going to tie into this. So you might be asking yourself, well, why, if I have, let's say, a Mitutoyo micrometer, why would I get the Iblue? Why don't I just go to Mitutoyo and get their wireless system, because they do have one? It's a great question, and to me, this is where it comes down to, what do you need? Mitutoyo does make a wireless system. I believe it's called the U-Wave. It's a great system. It allows you to monitor up to 99 devices at a time, but it's a transmitter and a receiver, and it hooks into a computer. It's not a mobile device. It's not intended to communicate to your smartphone. If you need that, then your choice is going to be something like this. The drawback on this is, obviously, one device at a time, not 99. So, but then again, it's only $500. So to me, what's important on this show is that you always understand what your trade-offs are. There are low-cost devices that do a great job, and if they fall within your needs, go low cost is what I say. If you need something with the expanded capabilities that you might get from a mid-toil wireless system or a Starrett wireless system or a micro gauge, if you need that and the money isn't an object and it meets your needs, then that's the way that you have to go. So there's always these little trade-offs. Now I mentioned that the Iblue only allows you one USB input. According to ITAMCO, next quarter of next year, so the beginning of next year, they are going to update the firmware on this so that you could tie in, let's say, a multi-port USB hub and connect multiple devices. So for instance, you might hook in a 4-port USB hub, and that would allow you to hook up to maybe 4 USB devices instead of 1 as it is right now. So this is the Iblue from ITAMCO. If you need more information on it, there is a link below the player page. And once again, thanks to ITAMCO for sending us the Iblue to look at today.
Great job, Dirk. Thank you. And thank you to TAMCO with their Iblue industrial Bluetooth transmitter. You can see the website right there where you can go for more information. And there's a link on the player page as well where you can go for more information to another good tech corner. If you have a tech corner that you want us to feature on the show on Quality Digest Live, just email us at qdl@qualitydigest.com and we'll get it on the show.
And we'll be happy to get it on the show. Yeah. And by the way, it isn't always necessarily just hardware. We focus on hardware, but every now and then it is nice to get a software piece in as well.
Sure.
Okay. So have you ever been in a classroom or a meeting or maybe part of a team and your boss or teacher, whoever, asks someone to share a personal success story or maybe a team success story? And have you ever noticed how reluctant people are to raise their hands?
They are.
Right? It's like kind of like we don't want to, I don't know, we don't want to boast or something. I don't know. But that was the gist of a story by David Schwimmer called 6 Sigma and More, Show Your Strength. And in the article, Schwimmer is essentially asking that question. Why do we do that? Why do we feel we need to hide our light under a bushel,
right,
as it were? And within his exploration of the question, Schwimmer shares the following quote. And it's interesting, this quote, I thought this as well, is often attributed to Nelson Mandela. Actually, it turns out it's from Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. And here's the passage. I think I just want to read it directly from the paper here, so let me just get this out. So this is from Marianne Williamson, and this is an extended quote from the book. Mm-hmm. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant or gorgeous, talented or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Well said.
That is an awesome quote from Marianne Williamson. And it's interesting because it really kind of, it points out something that I think we're almost taught from the time we're kids. And I know I was, is you get excited about something and you start to say, oh, look what I did. And maybe your parents say, oh, you know, don't boast. It's not good to brag is what is what we might have called it back then when we were kids. But I think what Schwinn is saying is that it all depends on where you come from, right? And if your goal is to put down others by elevating yourself, and look how good I am, then yeah, that's not right. But if it is pride in workmanship, if it's being excited about what you're doing, then that is good to share. And the thing that kind of stood out for me in this quote is the part of it that says, we are all meant to shine, as children do. we have all experienced this, where it's your own children or your niece or your nephew, and they're like 6 years old, and they come up to you and they say, "Oh, look at the picture I drew," right? And they got this, green, dinosaur, and you say, "Oh, Jenny, that's a beautiful dinosaur," and she says, "No, that's not a dinosaur, that's you." Yes, I can tell by the green hair and the really long fingers, purple. But they're so excited about it, right? I mean, it's like, look what I did, and it's not bragging, it's not prideful. It's like they're excited at having accomplished something. And that's what Schwinn is saying. He says, look, there's nothing wrong within the workplace of being free, of feeling free to raise your hand and say, yeah, look what our team did, or look what I did. This is neat. Isn't this cool? Look what we can do with this, right? And that got me to thinking, since this is the end of the year, I want to toot our own horn a little bit. I mean, we had a great meeting yesterday. We had a kind of a Skype meeting. Our leadership staff is in Washington. We're down here in Northern California. So we had a Skype meeting, and we were just all very excited about everything that we accomplished during the year, because we've got a very small staff. There's only 9 of us total that work here, and that's it. We do an immense amount of stuff, and we are all very proud about what we do. So I mean, I look at who we have here. We have our editorial staff, which is Taryn March and Laurel Tennis and Ryan Day, and these guys crank out a newsletter every single day. It's got to be edited, it's got to be assembled, it's got to be fact-checked. All this stuff every single day of the year.
Every day.
Our sales staff, we got Christopher Martin and Mike Richmond, who is also the publisher. By the way, all of us here wear multiple hats, because when there's only 9 of you, you pretty much have to, otherwise nothing would.
We happy few.
Exactly. Our accountant and list manager, April Johnson, who makes sure that new subscriptions and everything get put in, that people who don't want to be on our list get taken out. And of course, our executive leadership, Jeff Dewar and Christine Bammert, who listen to all the crazy ideas that come out of our staff almost every single day, and for the most part, they let us run with it. I mean, we were talking about that yesterday. If we don't come up with 2 or 3 ideas a day, it must be because we're asleep, because there's stuff is flying around here all the time. And that's because I think one of the things I'm proud of is that we work in an environment where that is actually possible, where you can do that. And so that is me blowing our own horn, and shining our light, and I think it's great.
And yourself, Dirk Ducharme, our editor-in-chief, who leads all of our content. And Dirk, one of the things we've done this year, which I think has really changed the game a little bit for us, was just what you just did. Our tech corners, those things are, these are amazing.
They're fun.
They're fun for you, but I don't think that you even realize how special it is that you can do something like that.
Well,
and give it to our audience.
And let me point that out. The other people I want to be sure to mention, even though they aren't technically part of Quality Digest, they are our partners. And of course, I'm talking about our video production partner, Rocket Spots, with Christopher Smith and Daniel Luna. These are